Welcome to the TravelPulse podcast. Here's your host, Mark Murphy.
Hey, it's Mark Murphy with the TravelPulse podcast. Yes, we are going to talk travel today, but we're going to kind of start with something a little bit different. Basically, I'm not traveling right now. I shouldn't say that. I was able to get up to New York and back, on the damn crutches. Because, just a reminder, if you haven't listened to the podcast in the past or you don't know what's going on for the last 7 weeks, exactly 7 weeks, I broke my freaking ass. I'm on crutches now for 7 weeks. I broke basically, they say my femur, but it's basically my hip. They were going to do a hip replacement. Instead, they stuck screws in there and a plate. And I guess the good news is if it takes, then, I'll be pretty much back to normal, but in 6 or 7 months. The bad news is it takes 6 or 7 freaking months. If they had just done a damn hip replacement, I would be basically cranking on my elliptical today. But I bring this up because at 6 weeks, I'm supposed to go partial weight bearing, okay? And I'm doing these, little leg raises and limited stuff you can do post-surgery for the first 6 weeks. But as the 6th week rolls around, I'm like, where the hell is the freaking prescription for physical therapy? Because unbeknownst to many of you, I've had 5 knee surgeries. I played college basketball. I've had back injuries. I've had shoulder injuries. I've had more rehab than I'd like to talk about. But now I'm back and I know what it's going to take to get back. And if I work hard, I'm going to be ready to go by the Travies. I'm going to talk a little bit about the Travies later. The Travie Awards, the big gala coming November 23rd in New York City, again at Gotham Hall. But in the meantime, I want to be able to get off the damn crutches by then. So I don't look like, Handyman from In Living Color, coming up going, hey, here we go. Can't do that. Handyman, you couldn't put it on TV today. People would go apeshit. But anyway, that's kind of what I am these days. Basically understanding what it's like to have limited accessibility. And let me tell you folks, man, it is a bitch. So, feel bad for those people that have this permanently because it just sucks. But in the meantime, here's a little levity. So I reach out to the doctor's office where the trauma surgeon who took care of me is based out of Cooper Hospital in Camden, New Jersey. And Camden, New Jersey, folks, they see a lot of trauma. They see gunshots and they bring in helicopter after helicopter with car accident victims and everything else. These guys know what the hell they're doing. This guy, Dr. Graff, I talked to him for literally about 3 minutes before getting put under and going into surgery. And he basically said, look, you're young. I don't know if you looked at my date of birth. I'm freaking 55. But I guess young, relatively speaking, for getting a hip replacement. He decided that he was going to do the screws and put it together and said, that's what I would do. There's a 75% chance it'll take. I'm like, awesome, let's just go for it. Because he said, if you get the hip replacement, you're probably going to need another one before you kick the bucket. So let's kind of hold off on that as long as possible. So they're great, no problem. But other than doing some basic PT that I was shown within a couple of days of surgery, and I'm very good and disciplined at doing, I'm like, okay, it's 6 weeks. What do I do next? So sure enough, I reach out. And I get a call back, but I don't hear my phone. So it goes to voicemail and I get one of the doctor's, resident assistants. And I'm listening to the message. He's like, yep, you can start walking and, just make sure you don't do deep knee bends. I'm like, what the deep knee bends? I literally cannot walk. I literally can't put, any more than just modest pressure on my foot right now. And I'm obviously nervous about screwing up what they did because I don't want to have to go through all this and then be like, okay, you're in that 25%. Yeah, you're going to need another surgery. Now you're going to need the hip replacement anyway. That would totally suck. But I'm listening to this message and I'm like, what the F? Are they talking to the right person? Don't do deep knee bends? I'm like, oh yeah, I have to be told not to do that. You know what I can do? I can lift myself up out of the chair using my arms and putting a little tiny bit of weight on it. So with that said, what's the travel angle? Well, the travel angle is I finally said, screw it. I don't have a prescription. I call a local PT place down here, and I'm like, you know what? I haven't been told I can't drive, so I'm gonna drive, even though it's my right leg. And so I get in the car, I go to PT, and then I'm on my way back. And let me tell you, freaking Florida drivers. So I was born in Chicago, but basically raised in the Northeast. So I learned to drive in Jersey, driving in New York. You don't hesitate, you just go. And the thing that drives me batshit about Florida is this time of year when, I don't know if it's the people coming from the north, the snowbirds, because they always get blamed because, the blue hairs, etc. They can't drive, or they're driving so damn slow and the roads are getting clogged. But someone's sitting in front of me at the damn light. The light is green and they're making a left turn. What the hell is wrong with people driving that don't understand when you're at an intersection, okay? You're at an intersection, and if you're one of the people that does this and you're listening, here's your driver's ed tip, okay? Driver's ed. You don't sit at the goddamn light, okay? Sorry if I offended anybody, but you don't sit at the freaking light and stay behind, the little white line that's there to tell you where you should stop. And you don't sit there until the road's completely freaking clear and then you make your left turn. You get out in the damn intersection, okay? And we all know this up north. I don't know what the hell it is with Florida, but you get out in the intersection. And that allows the car behind you to get out in the intersection and the car behind that to get in the intersection if you're doing the right thing. And lo and behold, as the light turns yellow and the oncoming traffic starts to slow down and come to a stop, 3 of you get through the damn light because you're in the intersection. You're not running a red light. You're already there. You can't just sit there when the light turns red. You'll be blocking traffic. So you all make it through and you turn left. So lo and behold, I'm the guy with one freaking leg driving the car back from physical therapy. I got somebody in a damn blue Volvo station wagon. They're not a blue hair because there's a kid, I see a small head, and they're sitting behind the bloody white line. And I'm going, Holy Mary, Mother of Jesus, would you just pull out for God's sakes? But, the more chill, relaxed, taking it one day at a time with recovery, Mark Murphy. I'm not pushing out into the intersection. I'm not beeping the horn. I'm being totally chill. Well, what happens then is the freaking light turns red. And they still don't go. Like they sit there and they still don't go. No oncoming traffic. So now we go through another cycle of lights. And the good news is, right? Here's the good news. The light has an arrow. You can turn on the green arrow. So of course, we wait, all the different, the right side goes, the left side goes. Okay, here it comes. Left turn signal. They don't move. They don't move. And then they kind of start inching. I'm finally like, screw it, I hit my horn. They slam on the brake. They literally slam on the brake. Ay, ay, ay. Florida drivers. Is that part of travel? But anyway, if you're a Florida driver, you know what I'm talking about. What was weird about the people in front of me that were driving or learning to drive, maybe driver's ed, I don't know what the hell they were doing. But normally you would see, you could spot them a mile away. They're driving, remember that Mercury Marquis? I don't think they make it anymore. It's like that, looks like a freaking cop car. Yeah, my parents had one. That's the kind of freaking car that you see the old people drive around. It's a Buick or, an ancient Oldsmobile. You know what I'm talking about? These big freaking 4-door, could be a cop car type of vehicles. And in this case, these people are driving a Volvo wagon, they got a kid in the back, and they still can't make a freaking left turn. But anyway, I guess there's a travel angle there. So here's the tip. If you're coming to Florida and it's this time of year and you're preparing to make a left turn and there's somebody in front of you, just relax because you might take 2 or 3 lights to get through it, just FYI. Now, I wasn't going to get political. I know there's politics in travel and etc. But let me tell you, here's what I gotta talk about today. I can't help myself. Okay, so two key things here when it comes to, well, I guess there's three. When it comes to politics, I don't know what the hell's going on with the media world. I mean, I've been on a lot of these shows, so I've had conversations, brief, in between breaks, hellos and, small talk, etc., with these different news anchors, etc. A lot of times I'm there obviously to talk about travel, and it'll be something that'll be sensationalized by the news media. I'll tamp it down. They'll talk about like a cruise ship that had a norovirus outbreak and make a comment about a floating petri dish, and then we go to commercial break, and the news anchor says, "Hey, by the way, so I'm taking my family on a cruise." I'm like, "What the? Hold on, you were just calling it a floating petri dish and being very sensational, and now you're doing what? Oh, you're asking me for travel advice on taking a cruise? You lying?" But anyway, that drives me nuts. But what's driving me even more nuts right now is when you got people in the media world who were railing on individuals for 2 years now because of the political polarization. And now all of a sudden, the guy you've been railing on, who's a piece of garbage, that you report as a piece of garbage, now all of a sudden, this guy who's a complete liar in all your other reporting, now he's the man. He's the man. I'm talking in this case about Cohen, the dipshit lawyer that Trump had as his right-hand person. You can't have it both ways, folks. You can't have a guy who's a piece of shit and then turn around and be like, "Oh, he's a great guy," because he's going to take down the guy you hate even more. And that's the problem with the news media. And then here's the other thing about media. And this is sort of the Trump effect. And I don't give a crap where you sit on politics. I could care less. I'm a registered independent, so I'm neutral as far as you know. And the reality is, guess what? I am so sick of politics. And this is just another great example. This freaking attorney, Avenatti. Nobody ever heard of this freaking guy until what? The porn star Stormy Daniels and the breach of an NDA / confidentiality agreement / hush money that was paid prior to Trump running for president. Like, had an affair. Yeah, I could care less. Just like I could care less about Monica Lewinsky and Bill Clinton in the frickin' White House in the 90s. Nobody gives a crap. However, the fact that this guy was out there trashing Trump, all of a sudden he became a candidate for running for president in 2020. Do you know that he was on TV over 200 times doing interviews? Do you know what the value of that is? And then we find out all this other crap. But again, how does a guy who's an unknown lawyer for a porn star that is now being discredited on a host of fronts turn around and become a candidate for president? That's how crazy the media world is, because they create people. We saw this with Trump. He got billions of dollars in free exposure. This guy's gotten, I don't know, 200 interviews. Do the math. I mean, some of these interviews could have a $30,000, $40,000 media value. Multiply that by 200 or 300 times. Now, obviously, that's not always the case, but the dollar amount varies, and it's worth a few thousand at least, $3,000, $4,000, $5,000, $7,000 on a media appearance, and then it could be 4, 5, 6, 7, 10 times that, depending on where he's appearing and how big the actual audience is. So again, it's completely insane, and I would hope that we have better things to talk about, but unfortunately, we literally can't break through with anything other than politics these days. And it's frustrating as hell, because there's so much going on in the world outside of that I think the rest of the world must really think we're nuts, because there's nothing that any of us have ever seen like this before, ever. Nothing like this. It's 24/7 politics. You cannot get away from it. And that's truly unfortunate. But there is news out there. There are news stories. In this case, not a great news story, We just found out that Marriott International, and they acquired Starwood. Their records, their guest records were hacked. So here's the thing. Have you ever stayed at any of the Marriott or Starwood brands? Have you? Have you stayed there in the last 4 years? Because their breach in their reservation system, which now they tell us goes back, FYI, to 2014. 2014. 4 years ago. So that is completely nuts. And the most recent breach is September. So if you have provided any information by booking on their website, by, staying at the property, because they have your credit card details. In some cases, they have your passport details. They have your phone numbers. They have your email addresses. Okay? They have all that data. And can you say LifeLock? Because your data is now exposed. And I think the lesson here is, just like we've heard before, your data, once you put information out there, and it doesn't matter if you do it on the web, because eventually it's going to end up on a computer server, a database somewhere in the Amazon cloud, wherever. It's going to be somewhere. And if it ends up somewhere, which it will, unless you live on a mountain and don't talk to anybody, have no credit cards, and nothing out there in social media, etc., guess what? Your stuff is going to get exposed. So you should look at ways to protect your data and protect your credit, etc. But the reality is you're going to have your information potentially used as a result of these breaches. And again, it's not just them. It's literally stores that have customer data have been hacked. Other banks have been hacked. The US freaking government personnel records have been hacked, folks. So you are not safe from identity theft. So you should think about businesses like a LifeLock that protect your identity and flag things. And you should certainly sign up for any kind of credit alert services so you can see if new accounts have been opened, etc. Definitely a smart move to protect yourself. And again, these are the things we should be addressing in the world of the media. But unfortunately, when it comes to travel, this was reported, lightly, it's out there, but I don't know, would they spend a minute, if that, on TV talking about this? Very, very briefly. Instead, we're back to Avenatti, we're Stormy Daniels, we're Russia, we're Cohen, we're Trump, we're this, we're that. And that basically leaves travel on the outside looking in, except for really shitty news. So here's the thing. If there's bad news, really bad news, and it's travel related, they'll cover it, folks. They will cover it, and they will beat it into the ground. And I'll just give you an example. If you look at the media coverage of the hurricanes last year, what did we see? Absolute devastation. To this day, we're still hearing in Puerto Rico about no electricity and just terrible conditions and so on and so forth. Now, if you listen to that and you see the images, you're thinking, who in their right mind would go to Puerto Rico on vacation? Why would you go there? And the reality is, in rural areas, in mountainous areas, yes, they have mountainous areas in Puerto Rico. It's a massive island. They have had issues because of the electrical grid that had not been invested in for decades. That was the biggest issue, getting these things back up and running. However, if you look at the latest travel news about hotel openings and open for business and the beaches, etc., you will learn that literally nonstop new properties are properties that have been rehabbed, that have been renovated as a result of the issues that they were faced with, damage from the storms. They're opening week after week after week after week. Most are open. Some are going to open in the spring, but for the most part, everything's back on track. Everything's open for business. But again, Do you think the media is going down to Puerto Rico telling you how everything's open for business? Do you think the media said, let me show you a map of the Caribbean, and let me show you of these 33 countries and islands that you can visit, out of these 33, how many were really affected? I think it was 10. So not even 1/3, not even a third were impacted. And even of the third, some were impacted to some extent. Some were devastated, obviously. But no one's going back and saying, hey, everything's back. Everything's great. Come visit. No, the media has moved on. Why? Because it's not sensational. They can't be like, oh, let's drive a bunch of clicks. Let's drive a bunch of eyeballs. And that truly sucks. Because remember a few years ago, Zika, right? I actually had a sales rep who's supposed to be covering the Caribbean who stopped going. She's female. She just got married. She would not go, which I thought was frankly ignorant, because at the end of the day, there was very little corollary. It was very, very much hyped in terms of this association with pregnancy and these babies being born with the deformed heads and dying. And to this day, when have you heard of a person going and getting Zika, having a baby? Because millions and millions of people have traveled to the Caribbean and other places that have been, quote, affected by Zika, have come back. Are you trying to tell me that none of them have gotten pregnant or were pregnant when they went and didn't know it? And that, where are all the deformed babies? What happened? What happened to that? Where is it? Because you damn well know if that was going on, guess what? They'd be reporting it like crazy. But have you heard? No, it's been like crickets. So it was crickets when the World Health Organization came out and said, there's not been a single reported case of Zika transmission being carried back to a country from any country globally where visitors, tourists came to the Caribbean in the last 12 months, traveled there and left. Are you telling me that nobody got bit by a mosquito? Are you telling me what? In other words, the bottom line is there is no Zika story. It has been the case now for 12 months. Who came out with a report? Where's the media? Where's the reporting? Where is let's set the record straight, folks. We told you Zika was, terrible, and babies are going to be born with deformed heads and die and all this terrible stuff. And then when facts come out from a year of nothing happening, no transmissions whatsoever to these tourists returning to their home countries, you'd think that'd be news. But no, it doesn't fit the narrative. What about Mexico? Did you know that year to date, Mexico has grown 6.7% in arrivals? Bet you didn't know that either. We just reported that on TravelPulse because those are the facts. And we're getting the facts out there on TravelPulse. Why is that important? Well, it's important because guess what? What have you heard? All you've heard about is how, stay away from Mexico, it's dangerous, all this stuff. Things do happen in Mexico as they happen in Fort Lauderdale, as they happen in Miami, Chicago, New York, LA, you name it. They happen everywhere. But do you think the news is going to talk about, despite all of our bashing, despite all of the negative news coverage that we've been hammering out there, Mexico is up 6.7% in arrivals. Yeah, you won't hear that, folks. You will not hear it at all. What you will hear about are things like, a lawsuit being filed about, quote, tainted alcohol. Those are the things you're going to hear about. And it's unfortunate, but that's just the nature of the news media. And it drives me completely crazy, but it is unfortunately how it operates today. And I guess we should be fortunate in the sense that they're so focused on politics, they can't seem to get enough of politics, that when it comes to something bad happening in travel, because there are times that bad things happen to tourists, they get themselves in a bad situation. And it's like, yeah, we might cover that, but let's get back on that tweet from Trump. So I guess that's like a silver lining. The glass is half full, Murph. It's half full. And I'll leave it at that. Now, here's an actual warning, a travel warning. First person perspective of what can happen to you when you do travel. So a few years back, I think this was 2012, me and my experienced crew of travelers, been all over the world, seen some really weird stuff, and been in some really, let's just say, very interesting situations. And we were in Cambodia. We flew into Cambodia and we were hooking up with the Ama Waterways ship. It wasn't the Ama Lotus, and it's escaping me right now, but we were going on their second ship. And we were there and we decided to pick it up in Phnom Penh. We were going to then travel from Phnom Penh in Cambodia up to Ho Chi Minh City or Saigon, and then ultimately go to Hanoi, Ha Long Bay, etc. And we get picked up at the airport because it was mid-cruise. It was coming from Siem Reap in Cambodia. We flew into Phnom Penh, and the driver picked us up from the ship, and he told us, hey, just FYI, Phnom Penh, there's a lot of crime, there's a lot of petty crime, et cetera, you need to be aware. Of course, us being seasoned travelers, we're like, absolutely, we totally understand, we've been all over the world, so on and so forth. We get to the ship, we drop our stuff, we get in a tuk-tuk, or whatever they call it in Cambodia, but it's that three-wheeled like trike where you can sit in the back and there's two benches. And we decide we're gonna go cruise around Phnom Penh, literally within an hour of getting to the ship. And Nick Chu, who at the time was my trusty producer, he was sitting on the side and he decided to take out his iPhone as we were going down the road, and he was just gonna film some street scenes just for his own edification. Not 3 minutes later, a scooter with two people on it goes flying past us, and the guy on the back, because this is what they do, reaches out and snatches his phone. Like, just perfectly timed. Now, that truly sucks for Nick, because we are now in Cambodia. We're going to be over there for about 12 days. He just lost his iPhone. Now, this is the guy and his sidekick, Jean Kang, who will play Words with Friends sitting at a bar next to each other, playing each other on their phones. These guys live on their damn phones. And I should have had a rule, like with my kids, I should have said, okay, guys, you need to put the phones away. We're going to have a nice conversation over dinner, which is what I did with my kids growing up. Successful sometimes, not so successful other times. I never broached this with Nick and Jean. Therefore, they live on their freaking phones. And sure enough, the phone was gone in a blink of an eye. It happened so fast that you barely even noticed it. You wouldn't even, if you were sitting on the opposite side and you didn't hear Nick go, whoa, I just stole my phone, you would not know it. But that scooter was gone. All you saw was the back shirt, and then it just turned and it was gone. And so was Nick's phone. So, little tip for you. If you don't think it can happen to you, you're talking to somebody who's been to, dozens and dozens and dozens of countries and some interesting experiences in all of them. And it happened to my guy, who's an experienced traveler, who's actually from Asia. And if it can happen to us, it can happen to you. So always be aware. And no one would expect, as you're holding your phone in two hands, that someone could just fly by while you're on the road traveling at 15 or 20 miles an hour and steal your phone. Happens every freaking day. It happens multiple times a day in places like Phnom Penh. So that also tells me that here's a tip for travel to Asia. Well, tip number one is protect your goods. Tip number two is get your ass on a plane and go to Asia. Right now is a great time of year to go to Southeast Asia. And it's a great time of year as long as you avoid the holiday weeks, because airfares are fairly reasonable right now. You can get a consolidator ticket through a travel agent that will save you hundreds of dollars versus the published fares. And it's called a consolidator ticket. It's basically a bulk airline ticket, and travel agents are the ones who have access to it, and they will book that for you. The good news is you will save money when you use a travel agent to book that international airfare. And I'll give you another tip. I would fly regularly to Hong Kong for business from JFK. You could book on Cathay Pacific, I don't know, $8, $7, $9, $11,000 for business class at the time. But I was able to get business class through another little tip, which is airline miles for about $3,400. At the most, $4,100. So less than half the price of paying for it with the airline. Here's how that works. People like me who travel a lot will take our miles and we will sell them for cash to organizations who then take those miles and use those miles to book airline tickets in the name of whoever that traveler is. The downside is you might need a day or two of flexibility coming and going based on load factors and how sold out a plane happens to be. But because they're using mileage, you're going to save a bundle. And what these folks do is they just arbitrage. They buy the miles from me for $2,500. They book the ticket, they sell it to you for $4,000. But if you booked a regular ticket, it would cost you $9,000. Massive, massive savings. So that's going to be your biggest expense, whether it's a coach ticket, a premium economy, or a business class ticket, doesn't matter. That's going to be your biggest expense, because when you get to Asia, Southeast Asia in particular, you're going to find 5-star hotels for $100 or less. You're going to find that you can eat for pennies a day. And I'm not joking, pennies a day. If you're in a place like Malaysia, particularly Penang, you're going to find these hawker centers that have food that would, for $4, you could not physically eat all the damn food, because it's just unbelievable. And in places like Penang, the street food is safe. Other places, I won't eat street food in Vietnam, for instance. So you just have to be smart and know in advance when you're going there that, guess what? Where can I actually do this and not end up getting really sick? And where can I, go? But boy, I gotta stay away from that. And I gotta find good establishments that I know are clean, so I don't have to worry about getting one of those viruses or bugs or parasites that so many of us, including me, yours truly, have come back with. All right, so Southeast Asia, one of my favorite places, super cheap on the ground, amazing experience, and very diversified. Do a multi-country experience, just don't go to one. Combine Vietnam and Cambodia, or best, Vietnam, Cambodia, Thailand. Thailand is the most, I would say, set up for tourism. It's got 5-star resorts, beautiful beaches. It's wonderful. Fantastic service. I would end in Thailand. I would begin in Cambodia. I would then go to Vietnam, because Cambodia is going to be the most raw, followed by Vietnam, and then you wrap it in Thailand. And then you got Myanmar and other places to come back to on your next visit to experience even more. But that would be a great starting point for everybody. Now, if you are going to travel and we are hitting winter, last travel tip, weather. If you're booking a cruise, if you're doing anything where you need to make sure you are there by the date that you're supposed to be there, like the ship's leaving the port, book a day early and take the first flight out, even if it's 6 a.m. and you have to get up at 3 in the morning. The reason being, you never know when snow's going to hit. We've already had some major snowstorms snarling travel across the country. If you screw up and you don't book your trip properly and you book it that day and your flight gets canceled and you're on a cruise ship, the cruise is going to leave you. And if you book your air on your own, not through the cruise line, they have no obligation to get you to the ship at the next port. If you book your air through the cruise line, then you have them responsible for getting you to, let's say, Nassau in the Bahamas, should you have missed the departure out of Port Everglades or wherever it was going out of Miami, etc. So just a little bit of a travel tip there. And that's it. That's it for this week's podcast. And I am early this week on Monday. I think this is a first. Mark it down, folks. And you can send me congratulations. Thanks.